Joe Coveney. Han är Vice President för International Corporate Services på OTC Markets. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Let's start with the basic, Joe. OTC Markets, what is it?
Yeah, so OTC Markets operates the U.S. equity market for securities not listed on a national securities exchange. There are over 10,000 securities that trade on our market, which is segmented based on the level of their financial strength and disclosure. We operate the OTCQX Best Market, our top tier market, the OTCQB Venture Market, our middle tier market, and the OTC Pink Open Market, which is the bottom tier. And our mission is to create better informed and more efficient financial markets and to provide liquidity, execution services for both brokers and investors, and to empower companies to improve the quality of information available to all market participants.
That's great. So what really differs from a stock exchange like NASDAQ, for instance, or NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange? Do you actually compete with them, or how would you describe the relationship?
Yeah, great question. I wouldn't say we necessarily compete with either one of those national stock exchanges. We just certainly serve a different type of company and bring unique value to companies who want to access U.S. investors, but may be wary of joining a traditional exchange. By definition, OTC Markets is an ATS, an alternative trading system, meaning we operate as an interdealer quotation system, very similar to what NASDAQ was like in the early days before they became an exchange. And this means we allow brokers and market makers to connect electronically to create liquidity versus the exchange model, which more or less acts as a limit order matching engine. So for international companies, what makes us unique is that they can cross-trade in the U.S. without having to be duplicative in their disclosure and without the added cost of reconciling their financials to U.S. GAAP, Sarbanes-Oxley compliance, other sort of duplicative or burdensome reporting requirements. And this is because of a special SEC exemption called Rule 12G32B, which allows companies listed on foreign markets like the NASDAQ Nordic, NASDAQ First North, the Oslo Bourse, etc. They can utilize their local market disclosure and have a freely tradable security on our marketplace without having to change a thing when it comes to regulatory requirements. So, as long as companies make their disclosure available in English, they can piggyback off of already the regulatory work that they're doing in the local market and basically just transplant it in the U.S. onto our market. So, again, the whole point is to eliminate the most challenging or burdensome regulatory requirements that come along with a U.S. exchange listing.
So you don't have to go through any procedures when you get listed on your market if you're on like a qualified exchange like NASDAQ, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes back to that 12G32B exemption. Our
we
goal...
have to learn that one.
It is
12GB.
It's certainly a mouthful, and don't worry, there won't be a quiz, afterwards.
Great, happy to hear.
But yeah, the exemption, again, because we're an ATS, an alternative trading system, it goes back to our unique value prop, meaning that you can utilize your local market disclosures and join OTCQX or OTCQB and have a freely tradable security accessible by all U.S. investors without having to change a thing. Our goal is to essentially take the pain out of being public. And look, you already have one regulator in your local market. You're already producing investor-friendly disclosures, and this is really an opportunity to capitalize on that. Most U.S. investors are either unable or unwilling to trade directly in foreign markets, and that's the problem that we solve. Cross-trading on OTC gives you unfettered access to the U.S. market. And, now Swedish and Nordic companies can have a security that has a U.S. ticker symbol, is quoted in U.S. dollars, and traded during U.S. market hours. So it really kind of bridges that gap and, provides that direct access to the U.S. marketplace when otherwise companies wouldn't have that link.
Well, that's great. For how long have you been in the market, Joe?
Yeah, so the company itself, the history of OTC Markets dates back almost 100 years. We used to be known as the National Quotation Bureau, and we would literally print stock prices on pink and pink sheets of paper, yellow sheets of paper for bonds. And over time, as markets have evolved, we sought to digitize and make trading electronic, again, in the pursuit of a more efficient market experience. And our current management team, they came in and took over, and again, they wanted to just utilize the power of data and transparency to make trading more seamless around the globe.
From a U.S. investor perspective, looking at the risk of investing in a foreign paper, in a foreign security as such, without the U.S. full regulatory bodies governing the trade and so on, is that an aspect for them, or do they trust that it's been secured through European regulation in this context?
Yeah, so by virtue of us being an ATS, we're viewed through the same regulatory lens as both NASDAQ and NYSE. So the OTC market is extremely liquid, highly regulated by both the SEC and FINRA, the U.S. financial authorities. And, again, because companies that trade on our marketplace, they can utilize that 12G32B exemption. It just it allows for an easier way for companies to be quote unquote public in the United States without having to go through any sort of burdensome or additional or duplicative regulatory requirements that would be obligated by the national exchanges.
Right. So the old ADR programs that used to be in place for Swedish companies that wanted to get access to the U.S. markets back in the mid-90s and so on, how does that fly versus what you offer?
Yeah, so common misconception, companies think an ADR is the total solution. Some companies think ADRs is the market. And a lot of my role and it's myth busting. It's to kind of eliminate, preconceived perceptions, maybe some misunderstandings, and really just provide a total education on how cross-border trading works. So OTC Markets, OTCQX, OTCQB, and the Pink Open Market, we are the stock market for all level 1 ADRs globally. So if you're a Swedish company that has an ADR program, you trade on OTC Markets. That's the execution platform where ADRs are traded. And, in addition to that, we also trade F shares. F shares are foreign ordinary shares. Again, another kind of class of security that trades on our stock markets. And we're agnostic as to what type of security companies choose to make available to U.S. investors. In fact, some companies make both ADRs and F shares available to investors. It's really a choice point for issuers, and we're agnostic as to what type of security companies decide to choose.
I was thinking about along the lines of visibility. Clearly, over the years, when we are assisting Swedish, European, Nordic companies to get visibility and traction in the U.S. markets, a ticker code is really the key to get full-blown access to various sites and being visible in the right sections of sites and so on, and in the right context. And you say that the ticker code is also what you get, a full-blown U.S. ticker code through the trading with your system. Exactly.
So all ticker codes that trade on the OTC markets have 5 letters. They either end in an F or a Y, designating if it's an F share or an ADR. And from a visibility perspective, OTCQX and OTCQB data are 2 premium tier markets. All that data is fed through the major U.S. data distributors, media outlets, various research platforms, meaning companies that trade on QB and QX engage a far greater network of U.S. investors than companies without a ticker or a quotation on our marketplace. Again, as I mentioned previously, most U.S. investors prefer to trade in U.S. dollars during U.S. market hours, and the ticker goes hand in hand with all of that. So it's a pretty key component for international companies who want to have a presence in the U.S., to take those steps to make themselves be visible and available to investors who want to trade their shares. To create visibility is also one of your specialties, Magnus, at Cision.
Indeed.
Do you have any corporations in the US with Cision Services?
Yeah, so Cision is actually a member of our premium provider directory, and us being a stock marketplace kind of puts us in a unique position where we can sort of serve as a hub for our clients and as a resource for issuers who want to, better engage U.S. investors. And that obviously, entails working with qualified partners such as Cision. Cision's contact details and a list of their suite of services is made available on our website. And, they have the stamp of approval from OTC Markets Compliance and Management, meaning that this is a certified and verified partner.
And how is the liquidity? How much capital can you access when going public on your markets?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's going public from an international company perspective. All we're doing is making your shares that are already being traded on the local market now available to U.S. investors when otherwise, they wouldn't have that direct access to NASDAQ Nordic or First North or, any other exchange in the region. And, the market's highly liquid. All the U.S. brokers and investors that trade and buy NYSE and NASDAQ securities, they all trade our market too. So from an investor's perspective, trading an OTCQX or OTCQB security is transparent, it's seamless, it's efficient, and it's the exact same experience that you would get if you were buying, any other U.S. exchange-listed company. So that's why companies like Roche, Adidas, Heineken, BNP Paribas, large multinational issuers, they trade on our market and they average over 30 billion USD in volume a month. It just reinforces the fact that the U.S. is the largest capital pool in the world, and we're able to provide an efficient and simple way for international companies to access it.
And who are the investors, the structure? Are they like retail investors mainly or
institutions?
Yeah, so it's a mix. This solution really works for institutions who don't have direct market access to stock exchanges around the globe. Retail obviously plays a huge part in that. So, the same investors that trade U.S. listed companies trade OTCQX and OTCQB companies. And it really just, opens the door or gives issuers in Sweden or, other Nordic countries an opportunity to diversify their shareholder base and reach, potential investors that they otherwise wouldn't be able to.
So, Joe, you came over here right before the Corona or COVID-19 troubles began, and you staged a seminar in Oslo with the Oslo Stock Exchange. What was the outcome of that, and what was the interest from a Norwegian perspective there?
Yeah, so we actually signed up our first Nordic OTC sponsor this year, and it was a law firm.
What's a sponsor?
Yeah, so part of the process to join the markets here, the procedure. So a company, they'll have to go through a standard application process with our compliance team, and they'll have to basically just, again, copy and paste all the information that they have on file with their local stock exchange because of that 12G 32B exemption. We rely on the local reporting. In addition to the application, companies need to engage an approved OTC sponsor to quote unquote bring them to market and certify that they meet all of the criteria and qualifications to trade on QB or QX and also meet 12G 32B. We have a list of sponsors on our website, runs the gamut between global investment banks, broker dealers, securities law firms, et cetera. And we're looking to engage, more partners in the region, more local partners in the region, to help issuers who want to go through this process. So long story short, yes, when I was in Oslo, which was, a wonderful town, and we had a great trip there, we signed up and are working with our first Norwegian OTC sponsor. It's a law firm called Rader. And, Rader now has the ability to help their clients and bring them to the OTC market where they can reap the benefits of trading, here in the U.S.
So that's Nordic sponsors. How about clients here in the Nordic? How many Nordic and Swedish companies are using your services?
Yeah, we have a handful of Nordic companies that are on our market currently. Nordics is a new focus for us. I'm actually the first dedicated resource at OTC to cover the region. And yeah, we think the Nordics is a high growth opportunity, lots of quality companies, perhaps some would say an underserved market. So we really want to, get the message out there that this is an attractive option for Nordic companies to, who want to have better visibility or engagement with U.S. investors. So yeah, from the Nordic region, Norsk Hydro, trades on our market, G5 Entertainment, Orexo, both of those are Swedish companies, Heliospectra, that's another Swedish company. Any company that has an interest in the U.S. market, whether it's customers, employees, operations, growth targets, they'll absolutely benefit from having their shares traded on a U.S. stock market like ours, just to sort of, support those various goals and initiatives.
Well, that sounds really like a lot of advantages, Joe. Where is the hook? Where is the hook in this context? Sounds really, really good. I mean, if I were operating on a listed company, I would jump on this horse straight on.
I'm glad to hear that. The downside, it's more on us than anything. Maybe it's folks just don't know about us. The PR or the marketing, who knows? Again, the Nordics is a new focus of ours, so I'm not surprised that many companies don't know about this as an option. But that's something we're looking to change sooner rather than later. So perhaps if we chat in a few weeks from now, I'll have a handful of new clients to share with you.
It's a home run, but what's not a home run? That's the corona situation we have. What do you say, Joe? Is this really a good timing for Swedish companies to consider your markets? Yeah,
it's certainly a challenging time, and we're definitely empathetic to problems that folks and businesses are facing around the world. But one of the unique traits of the U.S. equity market is the diversity of the shareholders and market participants, who are active in this space. Retail trading accounts, they've seen explosions in signups since Corona started. We've been processing record amounts of trades. We're open for business. U.S. and institutional investors, they haven't stayed on the sidelines. They're all still active. So I certainly think the Nordics is an attractive place for yield or alpha, and an interesting place for U.S. investors to look at. And the investment that comes from the U.S., it tends to be sticky, meaning that most U.S. investors are they like to think of themselves as long-term holders. And in times like these, when markets are most volatile, having a solid retail base can certainly smooth out that volatility and provide stability for certain companies when it comes to trading. And then on the flip side, some companies say, I don't want retail. But then something like COVID comes up and they immediately see why retail is important. Our market opens up those doors to the broadest audience of U.S. investors possible. And, with the pandemic, we've extended various forms of relief to our issuers. But, I certainly think that companies remain well positioned in today's Corona economy who have a need or interest in the U.S. market should absolutely review the strategic solutions that a OTCQX or OTCQB quotation could do for them.
Before we say goodbye to you, Joe, I just curious to hear, you said that you have Swedish company on your market. Do you have any success stories to share? We want to be positive here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a great Swedish success story is G5 Entertainment.
Okay.
You take a look at them. They're a mobile gaming app company. And, they went public on the NASDAQ Stockholm a few years back. Most of their customer base is in the U.S. And, U.S. investors had a hard time trading their stock. So they joined OTCQX, mid-2018. And they've really just seen significant increases in terms of trading volume, better liquidity in terms of, buying and selling the stock. And their valuation has gone up as well. And again, that's just because now they've opened the door to the U.S. capital pool and the U.S. investor base, who otherwise found it difficult to trade in Sweden directly. So, G5 is a really great success story. Another company out of Sweden that I mentioned as well, Orexo. Orexo has an office here in New Jersey, and they're producing, cutting edge therapeutics in the addiction space. So, the opioid crisis in America, that's something that's impacts, almost everybody. Somebody knows somebody who, perhaps has been touched or afflicted with the crisis. But Orexo is really doing great work to combat that. And the management team comes to the U.S. for roadshows. They come to conferences in New York and California. They present, they tell their story. And the fact that they have a freely tradable security on a U.S. stock market goes a long way in terms of helping their investment prop when talking to potential investors.
So, Joe, when you meet with potential Swedish or other Nordic listed corporations here, what's their reaction? What do they think about the offer that you put on the table?
Yeah, a lot of companies are engaged. They're curious. Many have never even heard of the OTC markets before, and it's led to very educational and strategic discussions. Companies. More often than not, companies view the U.S. as an importance to their strategy, and they're immediately kind of turned off or realize that it's unattainable, once they evaluate the NYSE or the NASDAQ listing process. So us being an alternative to that, it's been eye-opening, and companies view it as a very positive option for them when it comes to courting more U.S. investors.
And our listeners are working with investor relations. How much more workload will they get if they join your market? Do they have to come to the US once a week?
Yeah, for roadshows and so on?
Exactly. What do you say?
What's your take?
Yeah, I kind of think of this as another tool in the toolkit of the investor relations officer. It's really only going to make their job easier. Because, when they reach out to U.S. investors, one of the first questions they get is, are you on a U.S. stock exchange, or are you, do you have a U.S. ticker? And now they can automatically say yes. And, as a follow-up, here's all our financials in U.S. reporting format and in English language disclosure. And we handle all of that and just facilitate the access. Additionally, alongside trading on OTCQX, companies get kind of a complementary visibility, suite of services. So, if you're ever in New York, we'd love to have companies come in and, virtually ring the bell for a market open ceremony, create that kind of iconic moment. We do CEO video interviews. Other forms of, storytelling, which companies and certainly investor relations professionals can use.
Oh, that's great. I mean, Cision also has a huge billboard on Times Square as well to tag along there.
Yeah, let's team up and work together.
So Joe, if a company that now listens to this podcast senses that, hey, yeah, this can really be something for me and for my company, where can they go? And in terms of what are the costs associated with this? Could you provide like a range to just provide and shed some further light on the cost of being traded on your markets?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd always encourage companies to kind of reach out to me directly. I can walk you through the process. But again, it's designed to be simple and easy. And the fact that you can utilize your local market disclosures really kind of streamlines and makes this, such an efficient process for companies who want to have a presence in the U.S. market. Costs, OTCQX, it's a $20,000 USD annual fee to trade on the marketplace. That gives you, access to the market and to the U.S. investor base, and, process, getting involved with a sponsor. Again, it could be somebody that a company already has a pre-existing relationship with, whether it's a securities attorney or an investment bank. we can kind of take it on a case by case basis. But yeah,
okay, but they need a sponsor either here in Stockholm, Oslo, Copenhagen, Helsinki, or in New York through your service as well.
Yeah, both. Right now we're actively engaging Nordic financial services and law firms to become sponsors. So that there may be more of them in the near future. Or you can use one of the existing sponsors in our marketplace already. And again, all that detail is found on our website. And I'd be more than happy to, kind of help companies and walk them through the process.
Gotcha. What's the web address for the listeners?
Yeah, so it's easy. OTCMarkets.com.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Joe Coveney, Vice President, International Corporate Service at OTC Markets.com.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure speaking with you guys.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.